Hey kids, we're back with our Little Pilgrims Progress, and we're going to continue on in our story. If you remember last time, a little Christian and Pliable just left on a journey to go to the Wicket Gate. So here we are in chapter 4, the Slaw of Despond. Now, said Pliable, when the two boys were left alone, tell me what sort of place this celestial city is. It is very beautiful, replied Little Christian. Have you not heard the strangers talk about it? The king lives there, and his people never feel tired or unhappy. They wear shining clothes that can never be soiled and never grow old. I don't suppose they will let us in. Oh, yes, they will. The evangelist said so. See, he gave me this. And Little Christian unfolded the king's message and let Pliable read the words for himself. The king said that to me, the king sent that to me, that I might know he would like me to go to his city. He hasn't sent me one. You didn't meet the evangelist, but never mind. I am sure the king will be pleased to see you. Well, tell me something. What shall you do when you get to the city? First of all, I should like to see the king, and if he is very kind, I shall ask him where my mother is. You know, she went away when I was a little baby, and sometimes I have wanted her so much. One of the strangers told me that she was with the king, so I think she must be living in the celestial city. I wonder how long it will take us to get there. Did you ask Evangelist? We might want to walk a little faster, I think. I wish I could, sighed Little Christian, who was very tired already. I'm afraid I shall be a very long time on the way. It is this burden which is so heavy that it makes me walk slowly. Pliable was just going to say, what do you mean by always pretending that you have a burden to carry? When suddenly his feet sank deep into the grass and he saw that he had walked into a marsh that lay in that part of the plain. Oh, he cried, where are we now? I don't know, said poor Little Christian, whose burden made him sink deeper than Pliable into soft green mud. Let us try to get out. But the boys were frightened and confused. They could not tell which way was out of the marsh. It was called the Slaw of Despond, and it was a dangerous place even for grown-up people. Every step the children took seemed to lead them further into it, and at last Pliable grew very angry. See what a mess we are in, he said, and it is all your fault. I wish I had not come. If this is the beginning of our journey, what else may we expect on the road? Just let me get out of this horrible marsh, and I shall go straight home again. You may look for the city by yourself. Little Christian did not answer, for he was too frightened and unhappy to speak. His clothes were covered in mud, and every moment he feared that he would be smothered in the slough. How he wished that Evangelist would come and help him, but he could not see anyone near him. Far away across the plain shone the light above the wicket gate, and behind him lay the city of destruction. Pliable turned away from the light, and at last succeeded in getting out of the marsh. But he never stopped to help his companion, and when Little Christian looked back to see him running home as fast as he can, oh, how desolate the poor little boy felt when Pliable was out of sight. But I will go to the king, he said, and once more he struggled on, trying to find firm ground. Then, when he was almost in despair, he heard a voice saying, Wait a bit, I am coming to help you. Chapter 5. Help finds Little Christian. Little Christian was very much inclined to cry when he heard the voice of a friend. He had almost made up his mind that Evangelist was wrong, that the king did not care to have little children traveling along the road to his beautiful city. I am so small, he thought, and so stupid. I cannot even get across this plain safely. And what should I do if I come to a high mountain or a deep river? But at that moment, a boy named Help, who was one of the king's servants, came near to the slough and saw poor Christian struggling in the mire. Help was a kind-hearted boy, He ran at once to see what he could do for the child. "How did you fall in?" he asked, but little Christian could not tell him. Evangelist said I was to go to the wicket gate, and I did not know about the marsh. "Didn't you see the stepping stones?" "No, I was talking to Pliable, and we were not looking at the ground." "That was foolish. Where is Pliable?" "He got out, but he went home and did not try to help me." "Well, don't be frightened. I shall reach you in a minute. The king will always take care of you. I wondered why he sent me over the plain today, but it was because he knew you would need me. Take hold of my hand and put your foot here. There, you are quite safe." Little Christian stood trembling with tears in his eyes. "You are very kind," he said. "I should never have got out by myself." "No," replied Help, "I don't think you would have." "Are you going to the celestial city?" "I wish to go, but I am afraid that the way will be too hard for me. Perhaps I had better wait until I am older." "No, you must not wait. The king will watch over you, and whenever you need a friend to help you, he will send somebody." "Are you sure?" asked little Christian. "I am such a little boy, and the others all said I was stupid." "Never mind what people say. If you are one of the king's pilgrims, you are quite safe. You may find the road long and hard, but if you keep on bravely, you will come to the city at last, and then you will forget your troubles because you will be so glad to see the king." He spoke so kindly that little Christian did not feel afraid of talking to him. "Do you think I shall find my mother in the celestial city?" he said. "She is with the king." "If she is with the king, you will find her." "Is it long since she went away?" "She went when I was a little baby. I can't remember her at all, but I have a picture of her at home, so I shall be sure to know her. She looks so sweet and kind. Sometimes I cry because she cannot love me." "But she does love you," said Help. "The king does not let his people forget. I have no doubt he has already told her that you are coming to the city, and she will be watching for you." He had been kneeling on the ground, wiping the mud from little Christian's clothes with tufts of soft grass. He rose now, saying, "You have soiled your things very much, but you will have new ones before you get to the city. Don't lose sight of the light over the wicket gate, and walk as quickly as you can until you reach it. Goodbye, and remember, the king will take care of you." "Just one more thing," said little Christian. "Have you been to the city yourself?" "No, I have been very nearly to its gate, and then the king gave me some work to do for him, and I shall not go to live in the city until it is finished." "How long will it take me to get there?" "I cannot tell you that. For some people the journey is longer than others. But if you love and obey the king, he will be sure to guide you to the city at the right time. Now I must go. If you are frightened again, cry to the king, and he will hear you." Chapter 6. Little Christian Meets Worldly. Not very far from the city of destruction, there was a hill, and beyond the hill a little village. In this village lived a number of people who called themselves the king's servants and pretended to love and obey him, although they did not care about anything but their own pleasure and safety. They had been afraid to stay in the city because of all the strangers had told them. But they did not wish to have the trouble of going to the king's country, so they built houses and made fields and gardens for themselves beyond the hill, and fancied in that place they were quite safe. A boy from the village, whose name was Worldly, happened to be walking across the plain on the very day little Christian began his journey. Worldly knew little Christian by sight, because the people from the village often went to the city to visit their old friends, and they saw the children coming. He wondered what he was doing so far from home. "Is that you, little Christian?" he said. "You are a long way from the city." Worldly was a tall, fine-looking boy, and little Christian felt pleased to be noticed by him. So he answered at once, "I am going to the wicket gate." "The wicket gate? What for?" "To get rid of my burden." "Oh, of course," replied Worldly. "I know those burdens are tiresome things. It isn't everybody who can feel them, but when they do feel them, there is no comfort for them till they are gone." Little Christian was surprised to hear Worldly speak in this way, for little boys and girls in the city all laughed at him and declared that his burden was only imaginary. I hope I shall not have to carry it much longer, he said. I am making haste to the wicket gate. Who put it in your head to go there? Asked Worldly. I met a very kind man named Evangelist, and he told me to go. Worldly laughed. He may be very kind, but he is very stupid. I know him quite well. Look here, little Christian. I can tell you a much better way of losing your burden. Don't you trouble to go all of that one Don't you trouble to go all of that one journey. Yes, you see, I know exactly what Evangelist said to you. He tells everybody the same thing. You have been in that horrid slough already, and if you go to the wicket gate, you will find worse troubles than that. There are wild beasts and all sorts of dangers, and very likely you will just die of hunger and fatigue. But my burden is so heavy, sighed little Christian. I must get rid of it. And Evangelist said this was the best way. Well, of course, you can do as you like, replied Worldly, but I think you are very silly. How did you ever know that you had a burden at all? I read in the king's book that everyone has a burden. I thought so. That book is all well for clever grown-up people, but little boys like you can't understand it. You read it and you don't know what it means, and you just get your head full of nonsense. Now I'll tell you what to do. I won't go back to the city because you will always feel frightened, and it really isn't a nice place to live in. If I were you, I would go round the hill to the village. I have some friends living in the first house you come to, and if you tell them that I sent you, they will take you in and be as kind as possible. Then in a few days you'll forget all about your burden, and I don't suppose that you'll ever feel it again. Little Christian felt puzzled. Worldly spoke so kindly that he could scarcely help believing what he had said, and he thought it would be nice to live near his old home and be able to see Christina sometimes. You can't do better than my advice, continued Worldly. Never mind, Evangelist. That is the way. Past the hill. You can't mistake the house because it is the first you come to. Then he put his hands in his pockets and walked off, whistling a merry tune. And little Christian forgot all about the king and his message, and he turned away from the wicket gate to go to the village beyond the hill. What do you think will happen to little Christian? Will he stop his journey on to the celestial city? Will he stop and follow Worldly's advice? We'll have to wait and see as we find out. What an interesting story, though. It's a great reminder of the weight of sin and the burden, and how on our journey, the only one that can take away our burden of sin is Jesus Christ. But there will be many people that will tell us that we need to go this way or go that way. But Jesus tells us there is one way. He says, I am the way, the truth, and the life, and all who come to me will find the Father. And so that's how we know that Jesus is the one way, and he's the only way that can take our burden of sin. I hope you'll continue to join us and see what happens to little Christian next. Thanks. Have a great day, kids.